Let's give it up for Maylin Faulkner. Thank you so much, Maylin. Good morning and welcome to April. How exciting is this? Our theme for the month of April is kinship with all life. So let's take that in for a moment. Kinship with all life. I'm going to have a really good time today diving into the meaning of that, what it means for us, how we apply it in our life and in our world. But first, let's start out with our 2016 Global Vision Affirmations. As you probably know, if you've been here more than once, we are a center of over 150 centers that are following a global vision this year, where we're all kind of coming together in a collective consciousness to be more aware of this life that we're living, of how we impact the world within us and around us. So every single Sunday, we affirm our global vision together. So join with me this morning. We see a world that works for everyone, where all life is honored as expressions of the divine, where people live according to spiritual truth, where humanity awakens to spiritual magnificence, where humanity rediscovers personal creative power, where we live as one global family, where kinship with all life prospers, where unity and connection is emphasized, where forgiveness is the norm, where spiritual guidance is valued, where we are called to conscious social action, where people have enough food, homes, and a sense of belonging, where there is peace and harmony and justice for all, where resources are valued, cared for, and shared, where communities are meaningfully involved in service to the world, and where there is a renewed emphasis on beauty, nature, creativity, art, and aesthetics. Is that not the perfect affirmation for kinship to all life? Isn't it? Who's on board with me and getting behind this affirmation? Yay! All right. Well, and as most of you know, I like to start out with a little bit of comic relief, because sometimes we talk about subjects that are pretty deep, pretty meaningful, pretty profound. And the best way, I think, to really hone in on that is through comedy, through humor, through laughter. And why is that? Because it opens us up. Have you ever noticed that we're in a situation that feels comfortable enough for us to be able to laugh maybe with ourselves, at ourselves, with others, due to funny things that happen? It's an expression that is within us. It opens our heart and soul even more. So that's why I always start out with something funny, just to let you guys know if you didn't already. So let's go to the first slide, and they always have a meaning for the talk today. So here we go. The old proverbial gatekeeper here is saying, actually, you had a pretty good life, but you were looking down at your phone and you missed the whole thing. So a little bit of coming to awareness today. Have you ever caught yourself doing that? Maybe more so now than in the past, because we are so connected to our phone. And true enough, folks, that is kinship with all life, because there's so much that we're able to expand upon in our lives right now because we're so connected to this device that does so much for us and with us. The important part, though, is what? To be able to use the device for our expansion and not be tethered to it as a prisoner, right? We don't really want to miss life, do we? We don't want to miss a really good life that we're having. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Let's go to the next slide. Are you not thinking what I'm not thinking? The whole practice of the whole Zen, Buddhism, the meditation is no thought, moving into that nothingness. But folks, we're connected. We are connected whether we like it or not. We're connected whether we know it or not. We have an influence on others just as powerful as we have an influence on ourselves. And so it's very natural and normal to ask, are you not thinking what I'm not thinking? Or are you thinking what I'm thinking? Are you moving and having your being and operating in fluid flow and motion and in congruence to my life? Or is there some sort of obstruction, some sort of block that we might need to feel and process and move through? Don't know, but I do know that conscious awareness is what drives that. So let's go to the next slide. And as far as kinship with all life, what a perfect picture. This gator is definitely experiencing kinship with all life. Isn't that hilarious? There's a croc with a croc. It's all connected, folks. It's all connected. A croc with a croc. So there's this sense of interconnection that is extremely ancient. So just to touch on that a little bit, the Tao from China, the Africa meaning of Ubuntu, which as Desmond Tutu likes to explain, I am because you are. There's this sense of interconnectedness, and that Ubuntu is based on that. We are all interconnected. What I do and even what I think impacts the whole system and all of the people in a way. Did you know that you had that much power? Are you ready to recognize and realize that you have that much power? Because you do. And we're talking about this all this month because we've been talking so far this year up about our personal power and how to apply that in our life and how to step into this idea that what is the universe's main purpose, really main and only purpose? Someone was asked that in a film I was watching. And they were asked, what's the universe's purpose? And I believe it was Jack Canfield, right, that was asked that, the Chicken Soup for the Soul guy. Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful human being, just a lot of fun. Jack Canfield was asked, what's the purpose of the universe? So I ask you now, think about that. What is the whole sole purpose of the universe? And he had to think about it for a while, and he got back to the person like the next day, and he said, to expand. That's what he came up with, to expand. You know, we are constantly evolving. We are constantly expanding, whether we know it or not, whether we give ourselves permission to or not. We can't help it. We can't help but know a greater truth and revealing of the truth today than we did yesterday. Because even if we're not paying attention, it's in there. It's in there from a subconscious level. We are vibrating at a different energy level than we were yesterday because we've experienced something different, something new in our life. So this sense of connection, what I do and even what I think impacts the whole system and people in that way. Africa's version of Ubuntu, that interconnection. So when people act in unison, when people act like, have you ever noticed a flock of starlings? Big old flock of starlings in the sky. Have you ever noticed how they always turn together? They move together, they fly in the same direction, and then in a split second, they're flying in a different direction. It's like when people work and operate together and hold particular intentions and goals and purposes together, when they move as one, there's a great amount of power that comes from that. I've witnessed again and again people moving together, creating an enormous amount of power. They move as one, and they are able to accomplish so much more when we act as unified presence on this plane. Would you all agree with me on that? That it's a lot more powerful to operate in a unified presence than it is for all of us to go in opposite directions. Just like the geese that fly. I'm sure you guys know about that. The formation of the geese, they take that because it's the most efficient form of flying. They don't have to use as much energy in that formation that they fly in. They do that on purpose. So there's this unification taking place, whether they even know it or not. It's instinctually inbred within them. So we are one. Does everybody in this room agree that we're connected in some way, shape, or form? Yes, we can all agree to that, right? Because that's going to make the rest of my talk so much easier this morning. So let's go to the next picture here. This is so cool. Biologists say that trees are social beings. They can count, learn, and remember. They nurse sick members, warn each other of danger by sending electrical signals across a fungal network, and for reasons unknown, keep the ancient stumps of long-felled companions alive for centuries by feeding them a sugar solution through their roots. Did you guys know that? Isn't that amazing? Or not? I mean, we're all connected, right? Why wouldn't all the forests be connected? Just like all of the animals are connected, the insects are connected, there's this instinctual thing that happens. I mean, what creates this experience that happens on this planet every year when there's, the movement that animals and insects experience? And we're going to talk about this morning, but we experience it too, whether we're aware of it or not. But that is just one of many examples of how we're all interconnected, even the trees. I know my wonderful soulmate, Puddin', my cat of 19 years, she was so connected with me that when my grandparents would stay with me 30 minutes before I was coming home from work, whatever she was doing, she would get down, run to the door, sit down, and wait for me. And they knew that I was going to be walking through that door within 30 minutes, no matter what time of the day it was. It's like we're connected, especially to our loved ones, to our animal friends. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that, right? You know that. Clear, direct connection. Well, folks, that doesn't happen sometimes. The trees don't just do that discriminately. My cat didn't just discriminately think, one day I'm going to wait at the door for her and the next day I'm not. It happens nonstop, constantly in our life, right? Yes, and I could share with you so many other wonderful examples, but we're going to dive a little deeper into the talk today. So let's go to the next slide. This is a picture, and this picture makes me very happy. I allow this picture to make me very happy because looking at this picture, I am seeing an honoring taking place. I am seeing a kinship with all life taking place because what is happening now all over the world is they're building these overpasses on busy interstates and roadways that are natural, of natural setting with grass and trees and whatever is natural for that particular environment so that wild animals can cross safely. And it's in congruence with what we desire. It's our intention because when wild animals can cross a busy highway safely, what does that mean for us? That we can go along that highway a lot safer too, right? That we don't have to be as worried about hitting the wild animals who want to cross. But there's so much more to that because it symbolizes kinship with all life. That is going on in conscious awareness right now. It's all about this global revolution that's taking place, an evolution, an expansion that's taking place where we are waking up in a more global scale. Where on a global scale, we're making decisions that are not only good for me, myself, and thine, but that are good for everything. We are moving into a time where operating in unity and kinship with all life is not only the right and natural thing to do, but it's what we have to do. We're realizing that in order to exist further on this planet, we need to celebrate our kinship with all life. Would you all agree with that? You agree with it to the point that you can kind of get behind it, right? I'm guessing. We want to be able to get behind it. Ernest Holmes says this, because I want to first go back. I want to first say that we are still learning. Yes, we are operating in kinship with all life, but we're still learning. We're still expanding. We're still evolving. We are deep in this learning curve right now. Right now, we must learn to survive what we have created for ourselves while we are still learning and expanding. Can you think about that in your personal life? How right now, we're learning to survive and thrive in the life and the understanding and the knowing that we are in right now while we are currently expanding. There's a gift to that. There's a talent to that. And it can only take place when we are consciously aware. So important to be consciously aware and not, like the first frame I showed you, miss your life because you're looking down on your cell phone, at your cell phone, right? So the importance of being consciously aware. So Ernest Holmes says this, know your own mind Train yourself to think what you wish to think, be what you wish to be, feel what you wish to feel, and place no limit on principle. This is how we are going to operate more fully in the kinship with all life. Because when I was talking about how we're constantly learning, we're still learning, and we're deep in that learning curve, we need to survive, learn to survive what we have created for ourselves while we are still learning. We've got to apply what we do know while going deeper. So how many of you get up in the morning intent on applying what you do know to your day before you? Yes, you set that intention. And if you're not, I'm inviting you to take a look at that. I'm inviting you to begin training your mind. Know your mind and train it, like Ernest says, so that you can set that intention. Because it's all about moving and operating synergistically in kinship with all of life. It's also about this, folks. It's not about being an expert on the answers. It's about being an expert on the questions. Because when we wake up in the morning and we understand that we are getting ready to embark on another magical journey that we have before us, the important part is in our questions. What are we going to ask of our day? What are we going to ask of ourselves? And that will drive instinctually how much of your life you will participate in and how much of your life you're going to miss. It's a clear, direct connection to that. And so there's this thing that's taking place that we're going to talk about today, and there's these patterns that are taking place. There's this kinship of all life, and science is proving that over and over and over again. The animals prove it to us, the insects prove it to us, we as a species kind of prove it to us, even though sometimes we are looking down at our phone so much that we ignore the fact that we are a part of this beautiful dance of life, whether we're intending to be or not. Yet the universe and science proves that too. There are very simple systems, mutual relationships that take place where it proves that no object is completely separate and independent. There are patterns in the universe that proves this. Such as the fact, have you guys seen that picture of galaxies within the universe that totally look like the brain's neuron pathway firing? Have you seen that picture going around? And then next to it is a picture of the brain and what it looks like with the neural pathways, and the pictures look almost identical. There's a pattern there taking place. In a galaxy, there's 200 billion stars. They clump together, did you know this, in a spiral. They actually clump together in a spiral. It's very common from the huge scope of the galaxy right down to our snail's shells. There's this pattern of the spiral taking place in all of life, all the way up to the galaxies within the universe and all the way down to snail shells. So are you following me there? You've noticed that there are patterns that take place in life and operate within the universe. And the reason why that's important is it's important for us to pay attention to those patterns, because when we live in harmony with the patterns of life, how do we feel? What's our ability to manifest more of that expansiveness of what we desire to experience? It's a lot easier. What happens when we operate perceived against the patterns of life, the patterns of the universe? And I know you've probably been there. I know I have been. It's that feeling of knocking your head against the wall over, oh, don't, you don't follow me, the whole Homer Simpson thing, don't. It's about being consciously aware and noticing and witnessing those patterns so that we can operate in fluid motion with them. And the patterns of nature actually define us too. I know we've talked a little bit about how powerful the moon's energy can be and how some of us don't sleep for like 3 days where there's a really powerful full moon. Those are patterns that are operating, and they affect our lives. And the more that we're open and aware and able to perceive it, then we can live our life according to it, and that's kinship with all life. Did you know that there's the same patterns in all of the sand dunes on Earth? They are found in the sand dunes on Mars, the same exact patterns. So there's these universal laws that take place no matter what planet you're on. no matter where you are, they're taking place and they're having their way with your life. So how many of you would like to be consciously aware of that and know how to operate in the flow, paying attention and riding that wave? How many of you want? Yeah, I'm seeing some major hands fly up there. Yes. So there is this world that's governing the natural, how the natural world behaves. Did you know that a plant is a fractal? That its growth is ruled by this scientific law of fractals, that when you come to a bud and it puts out a new shoot, the same rules apply then as that first shoot. It puts out the shoot and follows the same pattern. Those patterns are found in every aspect of the universe. So what I'd like to explain to you is, guess what? We are little seed packets ourselves. We're little seed packets. And we get to determine what's in our little seed packet every single day, every single moment. Whatever you place in your little seed packet that you're planting into your life. And why do we plant things? To eat, to nourish ourselves, to grow, right? Well, you get to define what's in your little seed packet. Is it enough nourishment in order for you to grow and expand? Or is it not? Would it sustain the life that you dream of having or not? So I'm going to share with you some ideas, this idea that came from watching this film called Choice Point. And it's described that a choice point is at those times in our lives, and last week we talked tremendously about transformation and the power of that and how we have a choice in that. So our choice points come when we are living life and we notice and we feel and we're consciously aware of these natural patterns of the universe, and we feel as if like there's a time of shift, there's a time of change. And that's what this movie calls a choice point. We are at a moment in between one particular experience ending and another one taking off. And right in the middle of that, right in that void, is our choice point. In our Inward Journey class this past Thursday, we did an exercise where everybody had to do a time graph, a time chart, where they put all, well, not all, but the ones of their selection, major intersections and choices that occurred in their life. And by looking at that, they were to also put what would have happened if that choice was made differently. So we got to look at it as fact. This is what happened, but what would have happened? And we went through each one of the milestones. Those would be called choice points. And I can, sure, if I asked you to right now, think about a couple of times in the past in your life where your life definitely took a little bit of a different turn, took off, you learned some things, you expanded in some ways, but you had somewhat of control over that choice point. And you took advantage of that particular situation and guided and directed your life in a particular way. That's powerful, folks, to be aware of that. And there's a reason why. You know, when we're living life, we may find ourselves in the midst of, let's say, the ocean, and there's a big wave coming. We're at a choice point. We can either know how to surf and ride that wave, know how to swim real well and swim into the wave, or get our butts back to the shore, right? But that's a choice point. That's what the film's talking about, is every single moment, really, we're giving that opportunity to decide and define what's in our seed packet that's going to feed us or not, and that's going to determine the next stage of our life. That's powerful, folks. That's really powerful. And I know that the universe supports us in every way. And so our ability to pay attention to the patterns of the universe, how life shows up, to be connected to it in such a way that we can then live our life in congruence with it, synergistically, and not perceived against it, is what it's all about. So can you all think of what that means to you in this moment? Just bring that down into personal awareness. You can choose to align yourself with the patterns that support you. You can choose not to. But today, in this month, we're talking about kinship with all life. That choice point of being able to align yourself with the patterns that support you. So let's go to the next slide, please. The cause of global awakening is the cause of all humankind. I kind of spoke about that. We're at this choice point in life right now. We all have an impact. We're all connected. Our seed packets make a difference in our own personal life and in the lives of those around us and in the lives of the world. And so this is basically, it has to be. Global awakening is the cause of all humanity. We must awaken if we want to survive. We must awaken if we want to thrive. So let's go to the next slide. My abundance benefits everyone, and everyone's abundance benefits me. Can you all get behind that? That's one of the ways that we can impact the world, our world and the world around us. Let's go to the next slide. Important point here, folks. The principle of life is that life responds by corresponding. Your life becomes the thing you have decided it shall be. Your life becomes the thing that you have decided it shall be. So as we move and have our being and our knowledge that we are in kinship with all life, we get to decide to be and operate synergistically with life. We get to do that. We get to make powerful decisions that impact ourselves, our community, our world. And we get to bring all of this together. We're enmeshed together as one. So we get to learn how to cooperate with these patterns. So I'm going to give you some examples of how that's done. For example, this gentleman, James Caan, went to see how people were affected by massive floods in another country. And he was so taken by the simplicity of how people lived and how much the natural disasters of the floods were impacting the way they lived. He got to thinking, we're all connected. How can we form together in community and come together in community? And so he learned that by teaching them skill sets and by having everybody come together and participate as a whole, because remember I talked about the starlings and how powerful we are when we move and live and have our being in unity and unison, we can be so much more powerful. And so he created and taught and brought in these tools for people to learn how to mix concrete and for people to learn how to create bricks and to build houses and to learn how to irrigate. And everybody had a job that fit their skill set and their ability and their desire and their passion. And when it was all done and they've rebuilt this community, he went and everybody came through and he handed out these certified documents showing that they owned their own home, that they helped to build. And his point was because everybody had a hand in it, because everybody had their heart in it, they formed a community that was going to take care of each other because they felt the unity. They knew that I just by myself cannot live in the way that I desire. I need to operate in kinship with you. I need to operate in kinship with our community to be able to build and have shelter for the family and to have food for the family and then to move on and do other things, because with that Maslow hierarchy of need, once those basic needs are met, we can move on and expand in our conscious awareness of how we operate on this planet. It's really a beautiful thing. So another thing that happens at these choice points, there's this gentleman that I want to tell you about. His name is Brett Moran. Brett Moran was born in England to a family where his mom, he says, was a typical housewife, and his dad was a typical geezer, and those are his words. He watched football, he was extremely racist, and he didn't show his love. And so Brett wanted his father's love so badly that he thought that if he acted like him, he would be accepted and would be loved by his father. And so he learned at a very young age to discount the value of life, to be racist, to be angry, and to shout things, just like his father did. And it got him into trouble. He started to get into a lot of trouble behaving that way. But he recognized later in life that he never really owned or earned his father's love and approval. But he certainly wasn't showing up as who he was. So he went on to live a young life of doing a lot of drugs, of burglarizing, stealing, making fun of people, being very racial, just your all-around kind of guy that gets into that kind of stuff. And so he found himself in and out of juvenile delinquent centers a lot, found himself going down a path that didn't look or feel too good to him. And so one morning, and he calls this his choice point, one morning he woke up and said, I can't do it anymore. It's not what's in me. This is not the life that I want for myself. What do I need to do to turn myself around? And then he realized that his intention and purpose was really to be of service. He believes that we're the happiest and most fulfilled when we're in service to others. And so he started to do some research and gain an education. And then he became a trained counselor that went back to the juvenile delinquent centers and was able to help hundreds and hundreds of teens and young adults because he spoke their language. He'd been through what they'd been through, and he's come out of it on the other side. He said that in the morning when the birds would start singing, he hated it. He hated hearing those birds. He said they mocked me because it reminded him that it was the start of a new day of so many things that he had to be paranoid about and worried about and afraid about because he was always running from himself. But he realized something different one day, and he turned his life around because he kind of had an awakening. And now he loves hearing the birds sing. He loves welcoming a new day, and it has a whole different meaning for him. Plus, he's super fulfilled because he goes about his business helping people, sharing his story, reaching out his hand, hearing other people share their stories. He knew he only wanted to be loved and seen by his dad. And so he tells these folks, it's coming from right in here. If you're miserable, you're making yourself miserable. If you're miserable, you're not paying attention to the beautiful patterns of life because the universe truly does support us in every way. Let's go to the next slide, please. Love this. Both of these women are 74 years old. The choice is yours to make. And I'm not putting this up here saying that one choice is wrong or better than the other. They're not. But can you see the difference in the choices that these two individuals are making? They're both 74. It has a lot to do with the prior slide. It's how we choose to experience life and show up. Let's go to the next slide. The cells of your body aren't old. They keep regenerating. They are new. Your body has the potential of being as young and as vital as it has ever been, you see. You don't have old cells. You just have an old attitude about your new self, right? We just have old attitudes. And why? I'm going to bring it right down for you, folks. It's generally because we're looking at our phone all day long. It's so powerful to be present in our life. It's so powerful to have conscious awareness that allows us to tap into the natural patterns of the bigger life that we're all connected to. And so the idea this month is to live and breathe and move and have our being synergistically with all of life. We don't have to make it harder for ourselves. We can make it easier. That old idea of a magic carpet, it's based on that one slide that was read. Can you go back to that? It's based on that story I've told you so many times. You want to, when God comes to the doorway and rings the doorbell and says, hey, we're going for a ride. You can ride in the luxury of the inside of the vehicle, or you can be roped and dragged along the back bumper. It's entirely your choice. Magic carpet, folks. Life and your life is responding to how you have decided it will be. So let's go back after that slide of the two women. Let's go back. Yep. Look at this. I would say this is the perfect example of this woman's choice point. She came across a choice point. Age 47, age 48, age 50, age 53. That's the same woman. We are unlimited in our ability to create the life that we desire. We are unlimited. And we have the full support of life. And even more so when we are so consciously plugged in and tuned into the natural unfolding and patterns of life, that we can ride that magic carpet because we're tuned into it. That's what I desire. I love that feeling. And I know you guys know what that feels like, right? Show of hands, how many of you know what it feels like to be truly in the flow, to be perfectly supported in all ways? And we also know what it feels like, right? When we turn a blind eye to the natural patterns and to those natural feelings, and we override it with what? Sometimes it's stubbornness and obstinance. Sometimes it's the need to be right. I don't know. I mean, I could keep going, right? But we all know what that feels like. Conscious awareness. Let's go to the next slide. Here's our Rumiism for the day. And I picked this one because it's not my favorite Rumi quote, but it's important for today. These pains that you feel are messengers. Listen to them. That is what our friend Brett Moran did. Is he listened. He finally listened to his pain instead of running from it. So if you are experiencing pain, if you are being called to the carpet, literally, by something that's taking place within your life, it has a message for you. And it's not something that's horrible to run away from. It's something saying, hey, wake up, put your phone down. Be consciously aware of what's going on right now in your life. Be aware of what's in your seed packet. What's in your seed packet? It's just getting your attention, so that we can move in synergistic harmony with the patterns of the universe and make choices that affect our lives in a greater way. Let's go to the next slide. So the people who trigger us to feel negative emotions are messengers. They are messengers for the unhealed parts of our being. Now, we talked a little bit about that last week, but I thought that was super important to bring up because that makes a big difference on how we choose to operate in unity and harmony with all of life. Because usually when things come up that we don't like, we push them away, we resist them, get away from me. That's a downhill spiral that I'm here to share with you. What if, because we've been consciously aware, we've been practicing what it is that we know is good for us, like prayer and meditation and time out and time to be just consciously aware so that we know what it feels like to connect with the synergistic harmony of the patterns of the universe. What if, when those things come up and we are already fully spiritually supported, we can truly look at it for what it is? Oh, it's a message. It's a message. So there's a slide that I want to go to that is asking the question. It's near the end. It's Bobby Becker's quote. Do you see it? What is this experience asking of me? What is this experience trying to teach me about myself? Folks, it's always about you. Always about you. It is never about the other person. It's never about the other circumstance or experience or thing. It's always about you because you're kind of where it starts and stops. But what we choose to do with that makes a big difference on utilizing that synergistic harmony and pattern of the universe. Love that. So let's go back to slide 18, please. We just talked about triggering. If people are triggering us, what do? Go into slide 18. If the state of our nation is terrifying you, please love your neighbors. Befriend someone who you suppose is too different from you. Be irrationally friendly to whoever you consider the other. That is what is coming up right now. So if we know that when we're triggered by somebody, it's just giving information of what is needing to be healed, it happens on a bigger scale too. Like our country, like our world. We are getting messages of what we need to individually and collectively connect with and unify in order to heal. And I firmly believe that healing is nothing but revealing the truth. Healing isn't fixing something that's broken. You are never broken. You can never be broken. But we can reveal more of the truth of who you are We can reveal more of the truth of who our country is. We can reveal more of the truth of what our conscious evolution is on this planet. And it is a rock star, let me tell you. I am here to tell you, the conscious evolution of our planet right now is kicking it. Now, what you watch on TV, I'm assuming, because I don't watch the news, what you watch on the news is just one very small perspective and point of view. Take a look at your life. Look around. Look at everything that you're celebrating. That proves to you that the conscious evolution on our planet is kicking it right now. And look for all the signs that show up that prove that, like that overpass. I mean, yeah, that you might think, well, that's just one little sign. Is that really going to make a difference on the consciousness in the universe? You bet it is, because we all do in each and every way that we do. So let's go to the next slide, please. Now is the time for people of all faiths to come together in the spirit of freedom and justice and refuse to allow tragic attacks of violence to divide us along faith lines. It's not what it's about. We are connected no matter what, right? We already established that at the beginning of the talk. So we want to operate in unity, synergistic harmony with the patterns of the universe. And that comes from embracing the truth that is being revealed through every aspect of our lives. It doesn't come from separating ourselves, just like that Post-it note. It comes from embracing the differences, knowing that we truly all just really do want the same thing. We want to be loved and to feel love. We want to be honored and respected. We want all of those affirmations that we stated at the beginning of this service. We all want the same thing. And anytime we step out of that idea of unity, when we step into the false idea of separateness, things get messy. Things get really messy. So we want to pay attention to the patterns of the universe and the choices that we're making. Let's go to the next slide, please. Miracles start to happen when you give as much energy to your dreams as you do your fears. And I'm going to say, I'm pointing this out on purpose, but I'm going to say miracles happen all the time. We're always, with our little seed packet, we are always planting and fertilizing exactly what we're getting in our lives. When we place in our seed packet more and more of what nourishes and grows our dreams, it starts showing up even more and even more in our lives. How many of you have experienced that and know what that's like? Even recently, yes, it's a powerful thing. It's a very powerful thing. I know you know that old idea of being in the river. When you paddle against the current, it's a lot harder, isn't it? There's resistance. It takes a lot more energy. When we go with the current, it flows nice and easy. That's what I'm suggesting this morning. When we go into celebrating kinship with all life, it's about being in the flow and in the current. In order to know what that current is, in order to even dip our big toe in it, we have to be consciously aware. It will guide us. Our intuition will guide us to the current. Let's go to the next slide, please. The world is literally transformed as individuals become more awake. Next slide. Next slide. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Joe Salatin, he's a dear friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years. I love this quote. Amazingly, we've become a culture that considers Twinkies, Cocoa Puffs, and Mountain Dew safe, but raw milk and compost-grown tomatoes unsafe. You know, that's what has been going on in our planet. We have made decisions, we collectively, politically, made decisions that are not necessarily in the best interest of our planet and of the animals on the planet and of us as a species. Would you all agree with that? So something's happening. I know that you've probably noticed it because you're extremely consciously aware. But something is happening across the planet. There are entire countries that are not allowing GMOs. There's entire countries that have banned particular pesticides that we know are affecting our bees. And we're consciously evolving. There is this boy, he was 8 years old when he came to this realization. I want to find his name. Burke Bayer is a kid from Knoxville. He always wanted to be a professional basketball player. He was 8 years old, been working hard to become a professional basketball player for 8 years of his life. And he heard something that said that he was a part of Generation Z. And it was called Generation Z because it was the most unhealthy and unfit of any generation that had ever been born to this planet thus far. And it really hit home to him. He was like, I don't want to be a part of Generation Z. I don't want to participate in the most unhealthy and unfit generation of our time on the planet. What's going on here? So he started to do some research. He has now changed his life goal in a big way. He's become an organic farmer instead, just like Joel. And he has made it his duty to go around and teach and train people how important it is to know what's in your seed packet, literally and figuratively, to know what it is that you're planting, how what you are doing every single day impacts the planet and the air that you breathe and the soil that you plant in and the food that you digest. He was 8 when he started this. This boy has taken off. He wrote grants. He created this Grow Share project that brought in supplies and seeds and people, a group of people a few times a year to go around to these different towns and cities and communities to teach people how to grow their own food. And they're given little plots of land to do that on. And these communities are finding out that they're growing so much food, much more than they could possibly eat, so they're giving it away. And they're giving it away, and people are like, oh my gosh, this food tastes really good because it's grown organically without pesticides and without having to boil it to death or fry it to death or whatever it is that we do to death that completely covers up the delicious taste of food. I mean, this particular boy, he had a choice point experience. And he made a decision that reached in and tapped into a passion that was beyond his passion to want to be a professional basketball player, which is fine too. But you see what happened when he made a decision and started diving further into it. He learned about GMOs. He learned about what's going on our planet. He now goes around and speaks. He speaks to legislation. He writes grants. I mean, this kid is my hero. I love this kid. So I ask, between our example of Brett, who kind of started out in life in a particular way, but he had an awakening, so to speak, and he turned his life around, and in doing so became in great service to other people. And then we have Burke Bayer. When he was 8, he did all this stuff. See, these folks became consciously aware of their kinship with all life, and they chose to apply it to their life in such a way that they are manifesting more of the dream of their life. You following me on that? Oh, you are. So how many of you have just recently been in a choice point? Raise your hand. And have really taken a good hard look at what's in your seed packet? How many of you today are going to look at what's in your seed packet? Yes, yes, yes. We are celebrating today kinship with all life. Next slide, please. Oh, well, I was going to talk about that, but things are always working out for me. Just know that. Next slide, please. When we truly step into our life with clear intention, clarity, and purpose, the universe reorganizes itself to support us. I can guarantee that for you, folks. I can tell you unlimited stories of where that's possible. Do you all believe that that's possible? Do you? So how many of you are ready to truly step into your life with the seed packet that clearly defines what it is that you want to nourish and grow within your life? And I guarantee you that the more that we're consciously aware of doing that, we are in service to others. We're completely connected. We affect the vibration and the energy on this planet. We have an impact. And it's powerful and it's profound, and not for one single second do you allow yourself or others to tell you that you do not have an impact. Because if you don't, who does? Massive power for change and evolution comes when a group of people move and operate with clear intentions and work in harmony with the natural laws of the universe. So I am committed to working in harmony with the natural laws of the universe. Are you? Are you committed? Say yes. Yes. If you're committed to working in the natural laws of the universe, say yes. Yes. And if you're committed to take a look at what's in your seed pack, say yes. 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 Absolutely yes. So, we are at a global choice point, folks. Our individual choices made today make a far more reaching impact on others than they have ever done before. We are so completely connected. So I invite you to jump on that magic carpet ride. Be so consciously aware that you can feel the natural patterns of the universe, and that you can operate and move and have your way and have your being with it. Be the change. Be the change. And so it is.